Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now, your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am indeed your host, Goku. Today I decided to do something where I just talk to the listeners. No reading of a paper today. I might do a little reading, but not of a paper per se. I just want to talk about some of the stuff that we see going on right now in the news all the time. We keep hearing about Ice Cube. And, Ice Cube's plan, the contract for Black America, and his involvement with the Trump administration. Trump is seeking re-election, Republican president. And, this type of thing happens, it seems, every couple of decades. We have this problem with black celebrities like Ice Cube and the American Hustle. And what I mean by the American Hustle, this is the title of the episode, Black celebrities like Ice Cube and the American Hustle. And you'll notice I spell American like I usually do with 3 Ks. The United States has a long history of utilizing black celebrities. This goes all the way back to the 1920s, really 100 years now, right? They realized something about black celebrity, and they've used black celebrity often. And about maybe 60 years ago, we had Brother Malcolm X who spoke about, how ridiculous it is, right? That, our race, our people, are the people who are constantly, told to look to these celebrities as leaders, right? And I'm going to play this clip from Malcolm just so you could hear it.
Told you a little while ago, these leaders that they call leaders, this included Lena Horne, this included Dick Gregory, this included comedians, comics, trumpet players, baseball players. Show me in the white community where a comedian is a white leader. Show me in the white community where a singer is a white leader, or a dancer or a trumpet player is a white leader. These aren't leaders. These are puppets and clowns that have been set up over the white community and over the black community by the white community and have been made celebrities and usually say exactly what they know that the white man wants to hear. And it is an honor, actually, that they endorsed Dr. Martin Luther King and were against the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's actually an honor. Now, when you say that they also, in the same Newsweek poll magazine, I think the pollster said that he went into the Negro community and asked about the Muslims. And many Negroes whom he asked said, well, I never heard of the Muslims. Who are they?
This is the rank and file.
Oh, yeah. Now, when he got down to the rank and file, this was the answers that they got. This is the equivalent to the situation in Kenya during the Mau Mau uprising, when many frightened whites in Kenya, Africa, would go among the Africans and ask them, what about the Mau Mau? And the African would say, I never heard of it. And the same white man who would ask the African this question and very naively believe what the African said, when he went to bed that night, he would lose his head. Usually the one who took his head was the same African who told him that afternoon he had never heard of Mau Mau.
Except in the Newsweek poll, they used Negro interviewers.
You'll find that oftentimes Negroes are as much on guard around Negro interviewers, who usually represent the bourgeois element of Negroes, as they are on guard around whites. Usually Negroes know that when this bourgeois Negro walks through the door, he is not doing something that he's initiated himself, but he's involved in something in which the white man is the absolute author of and has sent him to the Negro community for some information. And when they give that Negro some information, usually they give him the information that they want him to take back to the white man, because that's who he's going to take it back to.
So you see here where Malcolm was basically saying that, look, if they push up this Negro, this black person around you or to your community, you should have distrust. And Malcolm was saying that, many of our black, American ancestors, that they understood this. And he's even showing like in the continent, how crafty black people were in the continent. They would tell you one thing and then straight up go and take your head off. Right? They'll play dumb and whatever to you because they know the danger that you possess. And you could have been a black reporter, right? Just as well as a white one. And they knew that your job is for those people, right? And they knew that, those Africans in Kenya, for example, as Malcolm used, they knew to tell you one thing, to misdirect and go take your head off, right? But it seems like piecemeal over the years, black folks in America haven't caught up to the hustle. Like I said, the American hustle is where you use black celebrity to kind of control the people. And it also serves a bigger cause for for America as well. It's been historically used as like, this example that America ain't so bad, right? So let's talk about the history of it, right? The black celebrity has always been held up to kind of symbolize hope and racial progress. You go back to the 1920s, the 30s, the 40s, right? A lot of actors and athletes, black singers, etc., were propped up. They weren't just simply entertainers. They made them seem like they were living proof that blacks in America didn't have to be swallowed up by the racist stereotypes, and they could be treated equally and with dignity, etc., right? And so they used the black celebrity back then, just like they do it now, right? They push this black celebrity and they keep you dreaming. They keep you thinking that there's an American dream, that you can attain this American dream because these other black folks did it before, so it's just on me, I just got to work hard, etc., and I could be like them. And so that was what our ancestors in America kind of fell for at one time. There were those who understood, but there were some, and increasing numbers over the years, there was more and more people who kind of fell into the hustle. During the Great Depression and even in World War II, right? Because World War I is in like around 1918, 1915. Yeah, so the Great Depression, which was like around 1933, and then you had the World War II, which was around 45. So yeah, so around that period of time, right, the government realized how potent politically the black celebrity could be for them. Not for black people, but for them. And so what they started to do is they started to tap into black celebrity to project this imagery of like America is so democratic, and not just trying to make that seem the way here in America, but to the world. This is what America used these images of the black celebrity to make it seem like, everything's straight here, everything's cool, the people are cool. Look, this guy's out here bojangling and tap dancing and shit. So he, it's cool. Everything's fine. Right? So that was America taking advantage of this this ideology that some black folks took when they first saw black celebrities on screen and in film and on the radio and all that kind of stuff, that there was really hope and a chance of progress. So then, at the same time, in those years, again, we're talking 1920s, 30s, 40s, same time, you got to remember when emancipation occurred in America in 1865, thereabouts. The formerly enslaved, as people would put it, they voted the party of Lincoln, right? So black folks' early voting history was Republican because they had the understanding that Lincoln was the person who freed the slaves, right? Remember, the early black folks weren't as politically astute as we are now to kind of read between the lines and to see what was going on. So they thought, well, Lincoln was the president. He ended slavery, right? He had the proclamation. He ended slavery. So they, out of gratitude to that, they always voted Republican. But what happened was, and a lot of people don't tie these two things together, right? I saw a black woman talking about, I wish I had the video queued up, but I saw her on social media talking about how black folks became democratic, and it was such nonsense. It's not funny. It was a young black woman too. The reality of it is that what occurred in America was the Great Depression in 1929. And with the Great Depression, with the Great Depression coming in, you had the President Roosevelt. So the Great Depression started in 29. Many would say it ended around 33, in 1933, March, when Franklin D. Roosevelt came into political power in America. Roosevelt was a Democrat. And under Roosevelt, when he came in, what they attribute to Roosevelt oftentimes is that he came in with the New Deal policies, right? These cultural programs that would employ large numbers of people, including black men and women. So knowing that he was going to need the black vote for a second term, Roosevelt really cranked up these cultural programs, right? He employed a lot of black men and women. Now, he didn't change anything as far as equality. He didn't do anything as far as as far as legislation, really, right? But he put these programs up so that during the Great Depression, a lot of historians claim that black men and women didn't suffer as bad, or maybe as bad as they could have during the Great Depression because of this New Deal and these cultural programs that Roosevelt put forward, right? So when Roosevelt put this forward, some black folks were employed and their skills and abilities were promoted. So it kind of showed that, blacks in America were capable people. They had skills, they had abilities, and, so that was a kind of a way to start to show black people in a more sympathetic and a more humane kind of way. As a matter of fact, in the New Deal, there were these art programs. And one person who comes to mind, she always comes to mind for me because people don't talk about this. When the ADOS and the FBA and stuff talk about people eating off of them, this author, Zora Neale Hurston, right, who's from Florida, she's close to the Bahamas. She made a living, a black woman made a living. She ate off of black folklore. Bahamian folklore. And if you don't believe me, look it up. She made a living off writing about Bahamian folklore. Right? So she was one of the people who were in these New Deal arts programs. She was one of the promoted people. There's another prominent guy, too. I can't remember his name right now. Right? But the idea was these people were like creating books and plays that would depict black people in more sympathetic and humane ways. So you see how the U.S. government picked up on something about black folks, right? Once black folks could see images of themselves in decent ways, right? Once you raise the esteem of those black Americans, I always talk about this. Recently was talking about this in the think tank. Once you raise the esteem of black folks because of being downtrodden, oppressed, etc. for so long, you now have a new customer. You have black folks with money in hand, willing to throw it all in your pocket. And so black America realized this, and they realized that the celebrity is how you get to black folks. As a matter of fact, go back in your history and look up the boxer Joe Louis. Joe Louis was a boxer around in the 30s, 1930s, right? And around 1936, 37, 38, somewhere there, he defeated this German guy, Max Schmeling. Now, think of the time. I'm telling you, it's around 1940 he beat Max Schmeling. Remember, the Germans were bubbling up. But the Germans happened in 1919 and 1945. They were always bubbling up. And so when Joe Louis knocked this dude out, here's what the American hustle did. Right? While black folks looked at it as a triumph of blacks over whites, the Americans made it a more geopolitical thing, saying that, well, Joe Louis is American, black American, he's being heavily segregated and, and they're being, racist against him in many different ways. But anyway, he's an American, and so we're going to push this as the American superiority. Right? So a lot of black folks at that time, if you think it's just happening now, no, a lot of black folks at that time too, many of who saw it as a triumph of black over white, a lot of them took on the ideology, oh, we are Americans and we are superior. So when you listen to the Tariq Nasheeds and the Yvette Carnells and all these other assholes out here talking about that black superiority, talking down against African nations and immigrants and all that type of stuff, it has its genesis all the way back around 1940 with Joe Louis. America used Joe Louis, and they didn't just stop at the fight with Max Schmeling. They used Joe Louis. In fact, Joe Louis was hired by the government, if I'm not mistaken, one time, right? He was hired by, I believe it was the Army. And his job was to boost morale and patriotism amongst black soldiers during the World War. As a matter of fact, let me quickly look this up. Pretty sure that Joe Louis was in a documentary film. Let me see. Joe Louis was in a documentary film. I'm trying to remember the name of it. But anyway, it was whatever it was called, The Negro Soldier in 1944. You can find it on YouTube. It's actually on YouTube. The Negro Soldier, right? Joe Louis was actually in that film, right? The Negro Soldier is a 1944 documentary created by the United States Army during World War II. The film was produced by Frank Capra as a follow-up to the successful film series Why We Fight. The Army used this film as propaganda to convince black Americans to enlist in the Army and fight in the war. Most people regarded the film very highly, some going as far as to say that The Negro Soldier was one of the finest things that ever happened to America. Due to both high reviews and great cinematography, The Negro Soldier proved to be a breakout film influencing Army members and civilians of all races. In 2011, it was chosen to be preserved in the National Film Registry of the Library of Congress. So, you see, this is what hustlers do. This is what hustlers do. They play off your morale. They boost your morale and your self-esteem. And so, again, America found that the black celebrity, the one or two Negroes they let pass through, right? The black celebrity is how you get to move black people. This is why every election cycle, especially in recent years, but it's been going on for many years, and I'll show you an example in a few minutes. You got a bunch of celebrities out here telling folks what to do. And it's usually the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party is bankrupt, morally bankrupt, right? Like we always say, Democratic, Republican, just two sides of the same racist coin, right? But that's what they do. They realize, and it goes back to Roosevelt. You create some ambiguous programs where you don't really, talk about black people in America. You don't really talk about their needs, what they want to see done. You do some, kind of ambiguous stuff, and you get a couple of black celebrities to come and speak on it for you, right? And boom, now you have black people as customers. Even after the war period, you had civil rights leaders who challenged black celebrities to use their platforms to promote racial equality. A big example of that, Muhammad Ali. So this stuff is not new. And black folks keep kind of falling for it and get deeper entrenched in it as the years go by. Here's my take on black celebrity. By all means, if you're a black celebrity and you have a political opinion, that's your right to have a political opinion. You understand? That's absolutely your right to have a political opinion. Everyone has a right to their opinion. But for the listeners of those opinions, you got to understand something. And you got to realize the context, right? So the opinion comes with a context. If this black person is a celebrity, right, his or her context, as a matter of fact, what's so funny about the Malcolm X clip I played earlier, Malcolm X lists Dick Gregory as one of these kind of, amongst the trumpeters and all this kind of stuff. He lists Dick Gregory. And from all accounts, Malcolm, at least from Dick Gregory's perspective, Malcolm and Dick Gregory were friends. And Malcolm was telling you, don't even listen to Dick Gregory enough, because again, it's the context from which their opinions come from. These are not people immersed in black political thought. You see. These are entertainers, they're skilled in their trade, and they have an opinion about something going on, but are they immersed in that opinion? The crazy way the black world works, right? You guys would prefer to listen to, say, Tupac than listen to, say, an Onitase. Like if Tupac was alive and doing podcasts right now, you guys will flock to that. Like you do Drink Champs and Charlemagne and all these guys. Before you flock to people who have dedicated their life to learning and teaching, right? People who are completely immersed in the subject of finding solutions for our people. And that to me is absolutely crazy. You know, not to pick on Tupac. I've talked about this before on the show, and I'm bold enough to say it. Like, Tupac was really a loser. Everyone does something that someone can appreciate. So he did a couple of songs. Thank You, Dear Mama, and all this kind of stuff. Right? But at the end of the day, Tupac died just like any low-life person on the street in a drive-by. And only few black folks are really bold enough to say that. I was real shocked to see MC8 say that some years ago on a Vlad interview. The man went backwards. You came from Black Panther stock, and because of it, there were things you would hit on that were tight. You know, the messaging was good, or pretty good for the media that you were, you know, doing it on. But at the end of the day, it was thug life and all this bullshit, and this dude died. And a lot of you, even still today, 20-something years later, would prefer to hang off of the words of a Tupac, as opposed to listening to serious people. I'm talking serious people who have studied, who have passed through organizations, who have created organizations, who have, you know, who have sat at the so-called masters or the learned ones before us feet, right, and have learned. Right? So here comes Ice Cube, Mr. NWA, right? Mr. N-word with attitude, Mr. this, that, and the other. And I don't hate Ice Cube. You know, I think Ice Cube was all right. You know, he's an example of something I always try to show people about the pivot. Right? You know about the pivot in basketball, but you could have pivots in your career. And he's done that pivot where, you know, rap started to kind of fizzle, in my estimation, for Ice Cube. And even before it fizzled, as you saw in the Straight Outta Compton movie, he started writing, like film and stuff like that. And, you know, he's done a good job. He's done some real good films, done some okay films. He's been funny in some stuff. But there's nothing that he's done there. And I know at one time, a lot of these rappers, they claim this affiliation with the Nation of Islam. I don't know why they do that, because when you look at their living, right, they're not living by any of the tenets that I know about the Nation of Islam, right? But at one time, he was kind of loosely affiliated with the Nation or something like that. But to say that he was a serious study, right? And you might say, well, I don't live, Coco, you don't live with Ice Cube. How can you? Yeah, no, I don't. But you see, there's something about stability and instability. An unstable man is unstable in all things. A stable man is stable in all. So, like, if Ice Cube was on some real serious study, we would see where we would see it in his works. I'm pausing here because I was going good for a minute there, and now, okay, so now the connection is back. This streaming stuff is just kind of bogus, but anyway. So, you know, you would see it in his works. And I haven't seen it in his works in any way to show that he's, you know, really passed through an organization, has been immersed in the problems of black folks and stuff like that. What I do see is a guy who has clearly been listening to some of the ADOS and FBA conversations, right? Because his plan for Black America is specifically for Black Americans. I don't have a problem with that. But you listen to some of the rhetoric he's using around, and he just, and this is something a lot of you guys do all the time. When you guys talk straight from from Tariq Nasheed's, playbook. You don't need to kick the Tariq dick out your throat and be your own man. Stand up on your own. Like I listened to an episode of the Pro-Black Perspective recently. Was it last night or the night before? It was a Tuesday night. And, I listen to some of these guys who, Only Say and some others are trying to show these guys like Tariq and them are just grifters and coons and whatnot. And these guys, one of the guys, literally said, well, I like Tariq because how hard he goes in on these immigrants. So again, if you break down what that really is saying, Tariq makes him feel better about his American self by shitting on him. No matter what facts out of Tariq's own mouth, of Tariq downing and denigrating his own Black American women in his recent past, showing his own sellout tendencies in his recent past, in his own words. You have these black folks talking about, well, I ain't too sure the context and, who edited. Come on. Right? So, no matter what was said to show, these are not people to listen to. These are not people who are immersed in solving problems or in learning of the history of Black people globally, and learning about the problems that we all have faced and who has found solutions in this nation over here and that and the other. These are people who are not those type of people. So these are entertainers. Even Yvette Carnell and those guys are wannabe celebrities. But I give them a little bit of props because at least Yvette has some background in politics. Tone has a background in law, right? So they went through, some type of gauntlet to come out whoever they are now. But guys like, Tariq Nasheed and them, these clowns are dudes who just are hustlers of their own kind, of their own making. And they're using the celebrity status. Imagine. There was an organization called ADOS, right? Had a hashtag and all that stuff, right? Two educated people or two or three, or maybe even four. It's probably 4 people who were at the top of ADOS. Now I see Sandy Doherty is kind of he's out, right? But here comes Tariq. And this is the problem with our people. Here comes Tariq in the organization, creates a dust-up, splits it out to his own thing. Now he has followers. ADOS has less followers now because he split it up. And the problem with it is, Yvette and Tone are so much suckers for celebrity, like Black folks have increasingly become over the years. They were cool with Tariq being in the group. Even when Tariq was spitting all that xenophobic hot fire, right, and all this stuff, they were cool with it. In fact, Tone blocked me for pointing that out to him. But they were cool with that stuff at first. But Tariq used his celebrity, right, to split the group. Right? And this is where come on, it's about time we start to learn how Black celebrity is misleadership. There's another type of Black celebrity, the kind of, I don't want to use that term that a lot of people use because it's disrespectful to Imhotep. But there's a lot of, soy candle type celebrities who try to raise up their head sometimes and do some stuff. But again, those folks are the kind of like pseudo science type folks, right? They believe their solutions is in a crystal or some shit like that, right? And so we don't need those folks. You leave them, I would say, they're celebrities. Take them in for the entertainment. Look, for example, during the bubble, right? During the NBA bubble, the LA Lakers won the championship. Kudos to them. You know, I was a Laker fan as a kid growing up back home. So kudos to them. LeBron James, who I like as an overall person, I have a problem with him. I'm not big on him as a basketball player. I like him overall. But at one point, he does an interview with his, you know, in his hand, he has the autobiography of Malcolm X. And the interview, I can't remember if it was Taylor Rooks or whoever, but the interview asks, well, what do you think about, what have you learned from that book? And if you look at this video, right? In fact, let me see. Should I pull it up? No, I'm not even bothered. But if you look at the video, right, and you listen to his response, right? Let me see something. Let me do a quick search and see if I can find the video. Oftentimes, there's so much stuff with commentary. Okay, this might be the video. Let me play this for you guys. Take a listen to this.
Taylor? Yeah. So you're holding the autobiography of Malcolm X along with Alex Haley. I don't know how far you are into the book, but what's your biggest takeaway so far?
I kind of just started a couple days ago. Read a lot of notes over the years. It's my first national pretty good.
All right, you know what that means? That means this Negro, he even started reading this book, right? And if you look at the book, if you look at the pristine nature of the book in his hand, this Negro didn't even crack that. Someone must have just handed that shit to him before he went to do this interview.
He's a very, very smart man. Very, very smart man.
He's a smart man, a very smart man. Dude, that's it? That's your takeaway? You didn't even have to have the book in your hand to say that.
His words, sixes. What's going on? It's actually what's going on today. See, understanding how powerful Negro can be. Use that word a lot. How powerful we are. We have to unite. We have to be together. We have to stand strong. There's always been consequences. There's always been things that's going to be thrown at us when they try to weaken us. They try to make us feel like we're not kings and queens. And it's going to come from all different races and different shapes and sizes and things of that nature.
For fuck's sake. Dude. I mean, this is like asking a kid, where's his book report? And the mother stammering and mumbling and vague response. I mean, come on.
It's a very powerful mind, gentleman. It's unbelievable to kind of be something that's coming directly from him. Stay. Shout out to it. Situation that happened. Now, games, the greats of the world, face of earth, just getting married. His face was pretty interesting.
And it's guys like this who they push to be our so-called quote unquote leaders. This is who they push to be our so-called quote unquote leaders. And you eat it up. If not you, to you listening to this podcast, but the people around you. Eat this shit up. Like, one of the greatest laughs I've ever had was, let me see if I can find it. Let's see if I can find it.
Yeah, man, they would. But I'm like, for real, why do you care so much what the Dixie chicks say? It's not like they political scientists and nothing. They just they think the same good. You know what I mean? Stop worshiping celebrities so much. Just don't listen, pay attention. I remember right around September 11th, Ja Rule was on MTV. That's what it is. We got Ja Rule on the phone. Let's see what Ja's thoughts are on this tragic. Who gives a fuck with Ja Rule at a time like this? Like, this is ridiculous. I want to dance, I'm scared to death. I want some answers that Ja Rule ain't not here right now. Then when bad shit happens to me, I'm in the crib like, oh my God, this is terrible. Could somebody please find Ja Rule, get hold of this motherfucker so I can make sense of all this. Where is Ja? I need Ja Rule.
And here comes some of you motherfuckers. Where's Ice Cube? Help me, Ice Cube. So the thing with Ice Cube is, like, Ice Cube went on, he's had this contract with Black America going on. And he was criticized because it came out that, well, the Republicans, Trump and them made it seem, again, this is how these fuckers use. Trump and them made it seem like Ice Cube was aligned with, Trump's side. I was working with them. Trump came out with a bogus platinum plan for Black America, which is just silly. And, then it came out that, Ice Cube kind of helped them with the plan. So people were like, well, what the fuck is Ice Cube doing there? Why is Ice Cube helping, a maggot like Trump? And, CNN kind of dissed him and called his political logic dangerous and all this kind of stuff. And so he went on with Chris Cuomo on CNN to kind of debunk some of the stuff that's being said about him. But my point is this, and I'm going to play the clip for Chris Cuomo. But my point is this. Why is Ice Cube the face of some contract for Black America? Now, I've heard Ice Cube say he's worked with different people. He's worked with Claude Anderson and all this kind of stuff. I forget what the other guy's name is, this leading Derek Hamilton, right? He worked with Derek Hamilton, who's this leading economist in America, black economist. And so, my thing is, if you work with all these people who are immersed, black economics, black struggle, trying to find black solutions for black problems, especially for Black American problems. Why aren't these the people? If you want to have Ice Cube mixed in, right, as somewhat of a face of the job, right, like the old A-Team, they had a face, right? Right. If you want Ice Cube in there, okay, but why don't you see these other people who are, again, whether you like Claude Anderson or not, whether you believe in his plan or not, he's been at it for a long time, right? Claude Anderson, me personally, has declined in recent years because a lot of the talking points that Tariq Nasheeds and stuff have, or Tariq in particular, has, comes from Claude Anderson, by the way. Claude Anderson is the invisible hand. I've talked about this before on the show, I believe. He's the kind of the invisible hand behind it, because Tariq them don't know shit about nothing, right? Tariq and them are Google scholars, right? They might have a book here and there, and they read a chapter for the, the DVDs or whatever, but they're not scholars, So Claude, he gets a lot of that stuff from Claude Anderson, Claude Anderson's books. Claude Anderson has a very big bug up his ass about immigrants. Okay, so I'm gonna play the clip, but again, my question is, why is Cube the face of it, a rapper who is not the most articulate? He's not the most inarticulate either. But he's not like, who's a person I could think. Anyway, let me play the clip and I'll come back with that though. Let's set this up. Play the clip.
Platinum Plan is not my plan. I came up with the contract with Black America. And I didn't run to go work with any campaign. Both campaigns contacted me. Both campaigns wanted to talk to me about the contract with Black America. One campaign said, we love what you have, but let's really dig into it after the election. And one campaign said, we love what you have. Do you mind talking to us about it? And that's what I did. So I didn't run to nobody, and so that was real misleading to me.
I didn't say you ran to anybody. I said that you would take it a pivot.
Well, you said I ran over to the Trump team instead of the Biden team. That's just not true.
Well, you are working with the Trump team instead of the Biden team. And people are giving you heat for it. What do you say to them?
Well, I'm willing to work with both teams, but I'm just working with whoever is willing to work with me. So the Trump campaign came to me and asked me to explain to them some of the contract with Black America. That's what I did. I'm not playing no more of these games, these political games. We're not part of a team. We have very broad problems, especially the wealth gap in this country when it comes to Black Americans. So I'm going to whoever's in power, and I'm going to speak to them about our problems specifically. I'm not going there talking about minorities. I'm not going there talking about people of color or diversity or none of that stuff. I'm going there for Black Americans, the ones who are the descendants of slaves. And that's what I'm going to talk to anybody who's in power with that. So if anybody got a problem with that, it seems like a personal problem.
Well, here's the problem, and it is very personal, as you know, for a lot of people of color. Because they'll say, why would you pick Trump when he says there's no such thing as systemic inequality?
I'm not picking nobody. He's the president.
But why do you think he'd want to do something for the community when he says there's no such thing as systemic inequality?
I don't know what he wanted to do. I just know what the man said. I know what he said to the country. I've never met Donald Trump. So I don't know what he's going to do. I just know what he said he was going to do. So both of them have a plan. Both of them say they're going to do something. And who knows what's really going to happen after November 3rd. Nobody knows from each side. We're all hoping that candidates keep their campaign promises. So that's just it.
So let's look at it this way. I think that you're right to be skeptical. Let's start with the Democrats, because even though there is a traditional connection between Black voters and the Democrats, you could also say you've been let down or forgotten by Democrats in a lot of situations that would have mattered. Then you say, all right, so then what makes one side better than the other? That's where you get in trouble, which is, you really think that Donald Trump can be trusted as much as you can trust Joe Biden?
I don't think I'm not trusting any of them. I'm just going by action. That's all I'm going by. I'm not going by words. I'm not going by rhetoric. Not going by media spin. Not going by none of that. You know, I'm not on nobody's team. I'm not on Team Blue. Not on Team Red.
So then I have that
independent person. Hold on, I'm an independent person, and I believe that's what Black people need to do, is become independent, and we need to get get something for our vote. You know, that may not happen, but it's gonna happen.
It's got to happen. It's got to happen. Nothing changes if nothing changes. Look, if I had brought you here to fight with you, you would have known. What I'm saying is, I think I did get it wrong. I want to make sure I get it right. So saying you're working with the Trump team is wrong. What you did was, when they asked to talk to you about it, you said yes. If Biden had asked to talk to you about it now, you would have gone to them the same way. It's not about you choosing anything. It's you working with everybody who's got a chance of doing anything.
I'm working with whoever's in power. Yeah, I'll work with both. Whoever's in power, I'm going to work with. So whoever wins, they'll hear from me.
Okay, so
You know,
I'm glad you came to clear it up. So Ice Cube is not with the Trump campaign. He's just giving his ideas, and anybody who wants to do something with him, fine. Do you believe they are doing anything with your ideas?
I believe, you know, they looked at the contract with Black America and they updated their plan. But it's their plan. I have my plan. My plan is broad. It goes beyond the public sector. It goes into the private sector. Banks, you know, even the movie industry. So we got to deal with a lot of different, I think, companies, corporations, and even government when it comes to solving this problem. I believe it's a bipartisan problem. I believe it's a bipartisan problem when it comes to the issues, when it comes to blacks in America and what's going on. It's not a Democrat problem. It's not for them to solve. It's not for the Republicans to solve. It's for both of them to solve. They do it when it comes to debt ceiling. They do it when it comes to getting us in wars. They seem to come together when it's something that really affects America. And I don't think nothing affects America more than the situation that Black Americans find ourselves in. This country is coming apart at the seams, and it's not going to come together after January 3rd, no matter who's the president, unless we deal with this wealth gap.
Yeah, I mean, you listen to Cube there, and like a little bit of a struggle to listen to the man try to explain his thoughts, and that's my problem. Like, why do we have folks who are kind of, you know, who are not well versed and uninitiated? Why are they the spokespeople? We don't need that. You know, there's this rhetoric going on. You know, you don't need leaders. That's a part of the hustle too, right? So you'll hear again Tariq and them talk about, well, they're the leaders. That's so that they don't have no responsibility, right? Because the idea is that, and all of this goes back to what I've been talking about as of late, which is the curriculum. You see, you need education, plain and simple, right? Malcolm X has said, without education, you're not going anywhere in this world. But you can't just have broad education. See, like, Ice Cube is, you know, like broadly educated, right? You need folks who are educated in black issues, who are educated in solving them. This is why you hear people talk about being parts of organizations and stuff like that, right? Or even creating organizations yourself. But even that, I'm skeptical of, unless you pass through an organization or been around an organization to know what organizing is. Right? There's better people to lead an initiative like this, and that's the problem. People who are more savvy, right? Who can convey the message better, who can argue, you know, the strong points of your message better, et cetera, right? Now, something else that I saw that came out of this was, there once again was this gender divide between black people. And you saw it play out on social media. And the gender divide was along the lines of this. So even CNN kind of said this too, was like, you know, for as flawed as a modern day Democratic Party is on race matters, it is, for better or worse, the party of anti-racism and intersectional justice. And again, when you start talking about intersectional and all that stuff, you lost. right? I mean, the Democratic Party has always been a racist uh, organization. They just realized that if they want to get in power, have their opportunity to be the leadership of the country, they know that they have to get the black vote. And like I said early on, they use the celebrities to get the black vote. Go back to Obama running. You saw every black celebrity out there. Right now, you see you see a lot, not as much as Obama, but you see a lot of celebrities out here trying to push you to the vote, scaring you with Trump and all this old stuff. And again, like I've said before, I believe that presidents don't really do much for black folks, but I do know that in your local communities, if you're smart and you look up the people who are running for your area, as we say back home, you vote for the person who you think is going to do more for your area. And another thing about like politics that black folks aren't really realizing, like come January, I saw Cube say 3rd. So come January 3rd, when you have the inauguration, January 4th, you're supposed to have a delegation at whoever wins at their throat. Politics is not something you practice, 6 months before an election. This is a problem that we have, and it's because we wait around for them to tell the celebrities to tell us to get involved, to start thinking about it, right? After these celebrities do this stuff here, they're gone. People talk about how, Democrats come sing at a black church, and then they, after the election, you'll sing. You don't see these celebrities no more talking this shit. These black celebrities, they're gone. Black celebrities start talking to regular folks when they're promoting their movie or album or something like that, and come election time. And that's it. And the thing about, just a side note, one of the problems I have with this continued rhetoric about, for as flawed as the modern day Democratic Party is, dude, the Democratic Party is just shy of 200 years old. I think the Democratic Party came about in 1828. You're just shy of 200 years old. How much how much more time do you plan to be flawed? And black folks must just accept that. And so within this flawed Democratic Party, the gender wars kicked up around this Ice Cube stuff, because they're saying that Ice Cube is kind of spitting in the face of all the black progressive women in the Democratic Party. But let's be real about this. Black women in the Democratic Party have been vicious towards black men too. Name me one black woman who's been, who's associated with the Democratic Party, who has done anything substantial for black men. Kamala Harris. What has she done for black men? And that leads me to a whole other story, but I don't want to go off on a tangent. I'll do this for another time. But one of the things we got to stop doing too, this is a side note, we got to stop looking at Queen Nzinga and Queen Nani and all this kind of stuff. And the same is true for men as well. And apply the greatness of that particular person to all persons of that gender today. We got to stop. These women out here are not those women. They have the potential to be with the right education, sure. But we got to stop that. But to continue. So this is how, the black celebrities like Ice Cube and stuff like that are misleaders. Tariq Nasheed, all these guys are celebrity entertainers and stuff. They're free to have their opinions and whatever. And once you understand that they're free to their opinion, But you don't have to follow the bullshit because the context still matters. Their opinions come out of them being celebrities, right? People who are hustling out here, white folks allow them to hustle out here and make a little money in entertainment, right? We got to understand their opinion comes from that world. That's not our world. We've got to focus on really creating the leadership that we want. I read a paper about that recently. The education that we give our children, and again, I want you guys to ask me how you can help. I'm not getting anyone asking me how to help. No one's donating, of course, but at least ask how to help. You have children around you, and do you care about our African future? But it's the education that will create the patriotic leadership. And you got to be about that. Because when you have a curriculum that creates a proper leadership, then you don't have to listen to a trumpet player, a comedian, a basketball player who hasn't even cracked the book open that he's talking about, that he's reading. Before I go, I just want to read something to you guys. This was from around 1972, I believe. Yeah, 1972. And it's funny. So the title is Black Supporters of President Under Fire. And it goes on to say, Sammy Davis Jr. was repeatedly booed 2 weeks ago at the annual Black Expo in Chicago. And a record shop owner here in Washington has stopped selling the entertainer's recordings. Howard University's radio station, WHUR, broadcast here yesterday a scathing attack on James Brown, the soul singer, and pickets protested his appearance last night in Baltimore. Remember, James Brown, this is a side note, James Brown endorsed President Nixon in 1972. And Black Society, and Nixon was a Republican, Black Society kind of turned against him when he did that. To continue, Blacks in Baltimore have also announced that they will picket future films of Jim Brown, the former football star turned movie actor. I talked about Jim Brown turned to a villain. Go check out that old episode of the podcast. These were reactions to the endorsements of President Nixon for re-election by the prominent blacks. By prominent, they're talking about black celebrities. The incidents are indicative of the bitter political battle for black votes this election year. They also reflect deep division and continuing strong dislike of President Nixon in a group that has traditionally voted overwhelmingly Democratic. Does this sound familiar? The emotionalism and division are so intense that some blacks fear that the disunity may leave damaging scars that would take years to heal. The historical difficulty that Republicans have had making inroads in the black community is compounded this year by the strong belief, right or wrong, that the president is buying black support through the administration's black capitalism program. Republicans deny that contracts and grants are awarded mainly to those who promise political support. Most of Mr. Nixon's new black supporters from holders of federal contracts and grants, employees of the federal government, or persons working in federally funded programs and projects. Included are some former civil rights activists. For example, Floyd McKissick, former director of the Congress of Racial Equality, and the Reverend Albert Sampson, former aide to the Reverend Dr. Ralph David Abernathy, president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Quote, the president has bought them and they have sold out, said Representative Louis Stokes, Ohio Democrat who was chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus. Charges of Uncle Tom and political prostitutes have kept black Republicans on the defensive and under intense pressure. Man, quote, man, we are catching hell in the black community because black Democrats are creating the impression that the president is anti-black, said John Wilkes, a former Labor Department official and now Eastern Coordinator of Black Political Activities for the Committee for the Re-election of the President. William A. Scott, the third, a lifelong Republican and one of the owners of the Atlanta Daily World, said, I have never seen such attacks by blacks on each other as I am witnessing this year. It's vicious. In the past, we've accepted each other's political differences, but not this year. Dr. C. Clayton Powell, an optometrist who was head of the president's activity among black Georgians, complained to the police that he had received threatening phone calls because of his support for Mr. Nixon. The reason for all these accusations and threats is the indication a lot of blacks will vote for the president. Indication a lot of blacks will vote for the president, Dr. Powell said. Dr. Powell, administration officials, and other supporters of President Nixon said that the awarding of grants, contracts, and jobs to friends was a proper exercise of political activity. Quote, the charge that the president is buying black votes is the biggest lie being told, Dr. Powell said. The people who are making these charges are the same Democrats who had sought a piece of the action from the federal government under President Kennedy and Johnson and didn't get it. Now that blacks are getting a piece of the action and supporting the administration that provided it, the Democrats are making it a dirty campaign. But the infighting goes on, and black Republicans begin their endorsement speeches by disclaiming to be quote unquote Uncle Tom. When James Brown announced his support of the president at the White House Friday, he told reporters, I'm not a sellout artist. I never got no government grant. I never asked for one, don't want one, and I'm not selling out. I'm selling in. Nevertheless, WHUR attacked those blacks that the radio station described as being in the field of sports, entertainment, and hustling. The editorial concluded by saying James Brown still is soul brother number one, but as a politician, he ain't diddly squat worthless. End quote. Perhaps the incident involving Sammy Davis Jr. is an example of the reaction to those blacks who support President Nixon. Pictures of Mr. Davis embracing the president during the Republican National Committee by many publications, including Jet, the Black Weekly News magazine. So there was a lot of pictures of him cupcaking with Nixon. Robert E. Johnson, executive editor of Jet, said that the picture had prompted the greatest response the magazine ever had on any topic. He said he had received hundreds of letters from angry readers, almost 100% against Mr. Davis, some in bitter and vicious language. At an appearance at Black Expo, sponsored by Operation Push, People United to Save Humanity, Mr. Davis was booed when he went on stage. As a young, mostly black audience quieted down, he told them, quote, I am a black man and I have a right to my political opinion, end quote. That set off another round of even louder boom until the Reverend Jesse Jackson, president of Push, came on stage to calm the crowd enough for Mr. Davis to sing two songs. In Baltimore last night, James Brown's appearance was picketed by 50 persons, and only 2,500 people attended his performance in a 13,000-seat arena. Outside, a crowd of more than 500 spread from the arena toward the downtown area on acts of rowdyism. About 15 persons were arrested, several store windows were broken. Meanwhile, as Republicans continue to pick up support among middle-class blacks and those in business in a campaign that is well-financed, the Democrats are practically broke and relying on locally financed and locally run voter registration, as well as heavy turnout of blacks on November 7th. This is back in 72. This expectation is enhanced by blacks running for Congress and other high offices in just about every big city. Not even black Republicans doubt that Senator George McGovern, the Democratic candidate, will carry the black vote, but they hope to keep the margin down. In 1968, it is estimated that President Nixon received about 10 to 12% of the black vote. This year, this being 1972, the Republicans have vowed to raise the percentage to 25 to 30. So far, however, national polls place Mr. Nixon at the same percentage as 4 years ago. Despite all the money they're spending, I don't think they'll do as well as in 1968, says Julian Bourne, Georgia State Representative. He also says, I predict Mr. Nixon will get about 7%, and all that money will have been wasted, he added. The strategy of Democrats among blacks is simply to push for heavy turnout of voters in key states of New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, California, Ohio, Michigan, and Texas. The Republican strategy is to hold down the numbers and try to induce as much switching as possible. That was 1972. How similar does that sound to 2020? Before I go, let me just play this, by the way.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
This is DAX. You tune into the Harsh Reality Podcast, providing you with social commentary on the news affecting our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
All right, I had a little crazy switch up there, hit the wrong button. So, family, before I leave, I just want to say, take heed to the history of how folks kind of hustle black folks, right? They hustle it for their own agendas, and you got to recognize the hustle. The idea that you can't stop the hustle is foolishness. You can stop this hustle. Don't let people just raise your steam and then do anything with you after. Follow the folks. If you don't have time to immerse yourself, identify and follow those who have. Be able to discern the people who are just listening to others, like Ice Cube is just listening. He's looking at social media and he sees the talking points on social media about no minorities and people of color and all that, which is fine, but he's getting that from social media, from Black Twitter. He's hearing the Tariq Nasheeds and the others who keep repeating the same stuff over and over. And he's playing y'all, he's using that for his little play here. Right? Is he well-meaning? He probably is, but is he the man for the job? He isn't. Learn to discern who's the person for the job and back those people. I know it's not always easy to listen to certain folks. I know it's easier to listen to the guys clowning people. Right? The whole show is talking about Bussy and clowning immigrants on their lace fronts and all this stuff. Like, y'all ain't doing it too. Right? Anybody ever watch Vicky Dillard? Anyway, let me just leave that alone. Right? But you got to learn to discern better. Got to learn when you're being hustled. All right? Anyway, this has been another episode of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Make sure to reach out to me and ask, man, how can I help? All right? There's work to be done. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, We hope you pass along our web address, bitamedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.